I'm not the type to get rattled easily. Life's thrown enough curveballs my way to ensure a thick skin. Yet, there I was, sitting across from Rick, feeling like I was about to lose my cool for the first time in years. The guy was a piece of work, with his slicked back hair and a grin that seemed permanently etched onto his face. He was the kind of insurance salesman who could probably convince you to insure your pet rock if he thought there was a commission in it for him. "So, Mark," Rick began, leaning forward, his elbows on the glossy surface of the cafe table between us. "I understand you're a man who appreciates the value of security. Protecting what's yours, ensuring that no harm comes to it. Am I right?" I nodded, my gaze fixed on him. "Sure, Rick. That's why we're talking, isn't it? You're going to tell me how your insurance plans are the best in the business." Rick's smile widened. "Exactly. But you see, Mark, I'm not just talking about protecting your car, or your house, or your valuables. I'm talking about protecting your marriage." The mention of my marriage caught me off guard. "My marriage?" I echoed, my voice a mix of confusion and irritation. "What the hell does my marriage have to do with insurance?" Rick leaned back, his smile never faltering. "Everything, Mark. Everything. You see, I've come to know quite a bit about you. And your wife, Linda. Lovely woman, by the way." My heart pounded in my chest. "What about Linda?" I demanded, my voice low, a warning edge to it. Rick's eyes sparkled with mischief. "Let's just say, I know about the little, shall we say, disagreements you two have been having, and how lonely Linda has been feeling lately." "How do you know about that?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, my mind racing. Rick shrugged. "Let's just say, I make it my business to know things. Things that can help me, help you. And from what I've gathered, Linda's been feeling neglected. Ignored. And that's a dangerous thing in a marriage, Mark. It leaves room for someone else to step in." The audacity of his implication hit me like a punch to the gut. "Are you saying you're going to try and sleep with my wife?" The words felt surreal even as they left my mouth. Rick's grin turned into a full-blown smile. "I'm saying, Mark, that it wouldn't take much. Women like Linda, they just want to feel wanted. And if you're not making her feel that way, well, someone else will." I clenched my fists under the table, fighting the urge to leap across the table and wipe that smug look off his face. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. It wouldn't protect Linda. It wouldn't save my marriage. "So, what do you want, Rick?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. Rick leaned forward again, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I want 3 things from you, Mark. 3 things and I'll walk away. Leave Linda alone." I was trapped, and I knew it. "What are they?" I asked, bracing myself for his demands. Rick's eyes gleamed with victory. "First, you end your affair with your secretary, Emily. Second, you have 5 minutes to convince Linda to stay with you, to really give your marriage another shot. And third—" He paused, a dramatic flair that made me want to punch him even more. "Well, let's save the third for later, shall we?" As Rick stood up to leave, I realized I was at a crossroads. My marriage, my life, was hanging by a thread, and this man held the scissors. I had to act, and fast. I couldn't shake off the feeling of dread that settled over me as I left the cafe. Rick's words echoed in my mind, a relentless reminder of the mess I'd found myself in. The thought that Linda could find solace in someone else's arms, especially Rick's, was a torment I couldn't bear. I had to confront her, had to know the truth. But how do you confront the woman you love with suspicions so vile? The house was quiet when I got home, the kind of silence that screams in your ears. I found Linda in the kitchen, her back to me, lost in thought as she stared out the window. She looked vulnerable, a stark contrast to the strong, vibrant woman I fell in love with. The sight of her stirred something in me, a mix of guilt and a desperate need to protect her. "Linda," I began, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned, her expression weary. Mark, you're home early. Is everything okay? How do I even begin to answer that? We need to talk, I said instead, my heart pounding against my ribcage. Linda nodded, a resigned look crossing her face as she sat down at the kitchen table. I joined her, taking a deep breath before diving into the abyss. Rick told me something today, I started, watching her closely for any reaction. He said that you're feeling neglected, lonely. Linda's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed in confusion. Rick? Who's Rick? The insurance guy, I explained, my frustration growing. He seems to think he knows a lot about us. About you. Linda's confusion turned to disbelief. Mark, I've never spoken to any insurance guy. What are you talking about? Her denial was a balm to my frayed nerves, but it wasn't enough to quell the storm brewing inside me. He told me you're feeling ignored. That I'm not there for you. Is it true, Linda? Are you seeing someone else? The question hung between us, a tangible thing, heavy with accusation and fear. Linda stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. Is that what you think of me? That I'd just run into someone else's arms because we're going through a rough patch? Her voice cracked, and she turned away, her shoulders shaking. I stood up, reaching out to her, hating myself for the doubt that had crept into my heart. Linda, I'm sorry. Rick made it sound so convincing. I didn't know what to think. She turned back to me, tears streaming down her face. Mark, I love you. Yes, I've been lonely, but I would never betray you. I thought we were in this together, for better or worse. Her words cut through me, a stark reminder of the vows we'd taken. How had we gotten so lost? I'm sorry, Linda. I've been an idiot. I've let work and other things get in the way of what's truly important. You. Us. Linda looked at me, her eyes searching mine. Other things. Mark, is there something you're not telling me? The weight of my own betrayal, my affair with Emily, suddenly felt unbearable. I had come here to confront Linda, only to find that the real betrayal was mine own. Linda, there's something I need to tell you. My confession hung in the air, a precursor to the storm that was about to break. The air in the kitchen felt thick, charged with a tension that threatened to suffocate me. Linda stood across from me, her arms crossed, waiting for me to speak. My heart hammered against my chest, each beat a reminder of the betrayal I was about to confess. Linda, I haven't been honest with you. I started, my voice barely a whisper, laden with guilt. Her eyes, red-rimmed from crying, narrowed slightly, a protective shield against the pain she was about to endure. What haven't you been honest about, Mark? The question, so simple yet loaded with implications, felt like a noose tightening around my neck. It's about Emily, my secretary. We've been involved. The words, once spoken, seemed to hang in the air between us, a festering wound exposed to the harsh light of truth. Linda's reaction was immediate, her face draining of color, her body swaying as if I'd physically struck her. Involved. Her voice was a mix of disbelief and anger, a dangerous combination. How long, Mark? I swallowed hard, the confession tearing through me. A few months. It didn't mean anything. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. Linda laughed, a sound devoid of humor, filled with bitterness. A mistake. Is that what you call it? And what about us, Mark? Was our marriage a mistake too? Her words stung, each one a pointed accusation that I couldn't refute. I had wronged her, wronged us, and there was no excuse that could justify my actions. No, Linda, no. Our marriage. I love you. I've always loved you. Emily, it was just a lapse in judgment. I ended it, I swear. It's you I want. Only you. Linda shook her head, tears streaming down her face once more. How can I believe anything you say, Mark? How do I trust you after this? I stepped closer, desperate to bridge the gap my betrayal had created. I'll do anything, Linda. Whatever it takes to make this right. I'll go to counseling, quit my job, anything. Just don't give up on us. Please. For a moment, there was silence, a pause in the storm that allowed hope to flicker in the darkness. Then Linda spoke, her voice steady despite the tears. I need time, Mark. Time to think, to decide if we can move past this, if I can forgive you. I nodded, understanding the fairness of her request, yet dreading the uncertainty it brought. Of course, take all the time you need. I'll do whatever it takes, Linda. I love you. Linda wiped her tears, a semblance of resolve taking shape in her eyes. I'm going to stay with my sister for a while. I need space, Mark. Space to figure out if we have a future. The thought of her leaving, even temporarily, felt like a punch to the gut. But I knew I had no right to protest, no ground to stand on. Okay. I understand. I'll be here, waiting, hoping. Linda nodded, her expression one of profound sadness mixed with determination. And Mark, this is your one chance. Your only chance. If we're going to try to fix this, there can't be any more secrets. No more lies. I met her gaze, the gravity of her words settling over me. No more secrets, Linda. I promise. With that, Linda turned and walked away, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen, the weight of my actions and her ultimatum pressing down on me. The road to redemption would be long and fraught with challenges, but I was determined to do whatever it took to win back her trust, her love. The alternative, a life without Linda, was a future too bleak to contemplate. The days following Linda's departure were a blur of remorse and reflection. The silence of the house was a constant reminder of the void her absence created, each room echoing with memories of happier times. I found myself wandering from one space to another, lost in thoughts of what had been and what I feared might never be again. It was during one of these aimless wanderings, late one evening, that I stumbled upon a small forgotten photo album tucked away in the back of a drawer. The cover was worn, the corners frayed from years of handling. I sat down on the floor, the album in my lap, and began to turn the pages. There she was, Linda, captured in moments of unguarded laughter, her eyes sparkling with joy. Us, together, on our honeymoon, on holidays, at family gatherings. Each photo was a testament to the love we had shared, a love I had so carelessly jeopardized. As I flipped through the pages, a realization began to dawn on me, a clarity that had eluded me in the midst of my guilt and self-pity. This wasn't just about my betrayal or Linda's potential to forgive me. It was about who I had become, about the choices I had made that led me to betray the woman I loved. I needed to understand why. Why had I allowed myself to be drawn into an affair? Why had I risked everything for something so meaningless? The answer, when it came, was as simple as it was painful. I had been selfish, seeking validation and excitement outside of my marriage, blaming my actions on neglect and distance, rather than confronting the issues head-on. Armed with this realization, I knew what I had to do. It wasn't enough to simply apologize to Linda and promise to change. I needed to show her, through my actions and decisions, that I was committed to being the man she deserved. The next morning, I called my boss and requested a leave of absence. I needed time to work on myself, to rebuild the trust I had shattered. Then, I reached out to a therapist, setting up an appointment for individual counseling. It was a small step, but a crucial one in the long journey ahead. A few days later, I received a text from Linda. My heart raced as I opened it, fearing and hoping in equal measure. Can we meet for coffee? I think we need to talk. The message was simple, but it filled me with a mixture of relief and dread. This was my chance, perhaps my last chance, to show Linda that I was serious about making amends. We met at a small cafe, the same one where we had shared countless dates over the years. Linda was already there when I arrived, looking beautiful and composed, yet with an underlying sadness that tugged at my heart. Thank you for coming. I began, my voice tinged with nervousness. Linda nodded, her eyes meeting mine. You said you've been seeing a therapist. Yes, I replied, eager to share the progress I had made. I've realized a lot about myself, about why I did what I did. It's no excuse, but I want you to know that I'm committed to changing, to being a better man for you, if you'll let me. Linda listened, her expression thoughtful. I appreciate your efforts, Mark. I really do. But I need to see more than just promises. Actions, Mark. I need to see real change. I understand, I said, my resolve strengthening. And you will. I'm not asking for forgiveness, not yet. I just want the chance to prove to you that I can be the man you married, the man you deserve. Linda took a deep breath, her decision clear in her eyes. Okay, Mark. We'll take it one day at a time. But remember, this is your last chance. I can't go through this again. I know, I replied, a weight lifting from my shoulders even as the gravity of her words settled in. Thank you, Linda. I won't let you down. As we left the cafe, a tentative hope bloomed within me. The road to reconciliation would be long and fraught with challenges, but for the first time, I felt ready to face them head-on, determined to rebuild our life together, piece by painstaking piece. I had been living on a razor's edge since our coffee meeting, each day a test of my resolve and commitment to change. The therapy sessions were uncovering layers of my psyche I had long ignored, forcing me to confront uncomfortable truths about myself and the choices I had made. It was during one of these introspective evenings that my phone buzzed with a message from Linda. Mark, we need to talk. Tonight. The brevity of the message sent a shiver down my spine. Something was amiss, and the thought of facing Linda, of potentially hearing words I wasn't prepared to accept, filled me with dread. Yet I knew this confrontation was inevitable, perhaps even necessary. I replied, agreeing to meet her at our house, the place that had witnessed both the best and worst moments of our marriage. The hours until her arrival were agonizing, each tick of the clock a reminder of the impending conversation. When Linda finally walked through the door, the weight of the moment was palpable. She looked determined, her posture rigid, a clear sign that she was bracing herself for what was to come. Mark, she began, her voice steady but tinged with an undercurrent of emotion. I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of soul-searching, and I've come to a decision. I nodded, my throat tight, barely managing to muster a response. Okay, I'm listening. Linda took a deep breath, her next words coming out in a rush. I can't do this anymore, Mark. I can't keep living in limbo. Wondering if you're going to slip back into old habits, wondering if my heart is going to be broken again. I need to move on. The finality in her voice struck me like a physical blow. I had prepared myself for many outcomes, but the stark reality of her words, the decision she had come to, was a bitter pill to swallow. Linda, please, I pleaded, desperation creeping into my voice. I've changed, really changed. I know I've hurt you, more than I can ever repair, but I'm not that person anymore. Don't let my mistake be the end of us. Linda's expression softened slightly, the pain in her eyes mirroring mine own. Mark, I believe that you're trying to change, I do. But sometimes love isn't enough. The trust is broken, and I'm not sure it can ever be fully mended. I can't spend my life waiting for the other shoe to drop. I struggled to find the words to convey the depth of my remorse and the sincerity of my transformation. Isn't our love worth fighting for? Can't we try to rebuild together? It's not about the love, Mark. I will always have love for you, but I need more than that. I need security, trust, and peace of mind. And I can't have that with you. Not after everything that's happened, she replied, her voice breaking. The finality of her statement hung in the air between us, a chasm too wide to bridge. In that moment, I realized that my actions had consequences far beyond what I had imagined, that my betrayal had irrevocably altered the course of our lives. I understand, I said finally, the words hollow in my own ears. I wish. I wish things could be different. I'm so sorry, Linda, for everything. Linda nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. I am too, Mark. I truly am. With that, she turned and walked out of the door, out of our home, and out of the life we had built together. I was left alone, the silence a stark reminder of the cost of my actions. The confrontation, though painful, brought a harsh clarity. Linda's decision, while devastating, was a reflection of the damage I had caused. It was a consequence I had to accept, a painful step on the long road to redemption. In losing her, I had found a bitter truth: that love, no matter how deep, could not always conquer all. In the weeks that followed Linda's departure, I found myself adrift in a sea of remorse and self-reflection. The finality of our confrontation had left me shattered, yet amidst the ruins of our marriage, I began to discern the faint outlines of a path forward. It was a path not towards reconciliation, for that ship had sailed, but towards personal redemption and perhaps, in time, forgiveness. I threw myself into therapy with a fervor I hadn't known I possessed. Each session peeled back layers of denial, ego, and self-deception, revealing the raw, uncomfortable truths of my character. It was during one particularly grueling session that my therapist, Dr. Simmons, challenged me with a question that would become the cornerstone of my journey. Mark, what does redemption mean to you? Dr. Simmons asked, her gaze penetrating. I paused, considering the weight of the question. It means taking responsibility for my actions. It means proving to Linda, and to myself, that I can be better, that I am not defined by my worst mistake. Dr. Simmons nodded, encouraging me to delve deeper. And how do you plan to do that, Mark? I'm not entirely sure, I admitted, the enormity of the task suddenly looming before me. But I know it starts with being the man I should have been all along, the man Linda deserved. Good, Dr. Simmons replied, a note of approval in her voice. Remember, redemption is a journey, not a destination. It's about the choices you make every day, moving forward. Emboldened by our conversation, I began to take tangible steps towards change. I volunteered at a local shelter, offering my time and resources to those in need. I continued my therapy sessions, each one a step towards understanding and growth. And perhaps most importantly, I reached out to Linda, not to plead for another chance, but to offer a heartfelt apology and to thank her for the love and lessons she had given me. It was several months later, on a crisp autumn afternoon, that I found myself sitting across from Linda at the same cafe where we had met for our pivotal conversation. The air between us was charged with a cautious, fragile hope. Linda, hi. I wanted to thank you, I began, my voice laced with genuine emotion. For everything. For showing me what love is, and for being brave enough to walk away when I lost sight of that. Linda looked at me, her eyes reflecting a complex tapestry of feelings. Mark, I've seen the changes you've made. I won't lie and say it's been easy to watch, or that it hasn't brought up a lot of mixed emotions. But I am proud of you. Not for me, but for yourself. Her words were a balm to my soul, a sign that perhaps in time we could forge a new kind of relationship, built on mutual respect and understanding rather than romantic love. I know I can never undo the past, Linda, but I promise you, the lessons I've learned will not be forgotten. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be a better man, one worthy of the love we once shared. I said, the conviction in my voice unwavering. Linda smiled, a sad yet genuine smile. I believe you, Mark. And I forgive you, not for your sake, but for mine. I hope, in time, you can forgive yourself too. As we parted ways that day, I felt a sense of closure, a chapter ending, even as the pages of a new one began to turn. My journey towards redemption was far from over, but for the first time, I felt hopeful about the road ahead. I had lost the love of my life, but in the process, I had found something equally precious. A chance to rediscover my own worth and to make amends for the pain I had caused. It was a redemption born not out of a desire to win back what was lost, but out of a genuine commitment to do better, to be better. and perhaps in the end, that was the most profound love story of all. Months had passed since my last meeting with Linda, and the seasons had shifted, mirroring the transformation within me. The once barren branches of my life now showed the first buds of new growth, a testament to the journey of self-discovery and redemption I had embarked upon. It was during one of my now customary lawn walks through the city park, a ritual that had become a source of solace and reflection, that I ran into an old friend, Alex. Alex had known Linda and me during the zenith of our love, and he had witnessed the fallout of my actions. His surprise at seeing me was evident in his widened eyes and the slight slackening of his jaw. "Mark, is that really you?" he asked, stepping closer. "Yeah, it's me," I replied, managing a small, rueful smile. "It's been a while, Alex." He studied me for a moment, his expression turning from surprise to something softer, more contemplative. "You look different. Better. What happened?" I chuckled softly, the sound tinged with a hint of melancholy. "Let's just say I've been doing a lot of work on myself. It's been a long road." Alex nodded, understanding flashing in his eyes. "Mind if I walk with you? I'd love to hear about it if you're willing to share." Grateful for the company and the opportunity to articulate the changes I had undergone, I agreed. As we walked, I shared the journey of the past months, the therapy sessions, the volunteer work, and most importantly, the confrontation and subsequent conversation with Linda. "It sounds like you've really turned a corner, Mark." "I'm impressed," Alex said, genuine respect coloring his tone. "I had a lot of help," I admitted, "and a lot of motivation to change. Losing Linda was the wake-up call I never knew I needed." We walked in silence for a few moments, the only sound the crunch of leaves underfoot. It was Alex who broke the silence, his voice thoughtful. "Do you ever regret it? Not just the cheating, but everything that came after. The pain, the loss, the struggle to rebuild?" I paused, considering his question. The answer, when it came, was steeped in the hard-earned wisdom of my journey. "Regret is a tricky thing," I began, my gaze fixed on the path ahead. "Of course, I regret the pain I caused Linda, the damage I did to our marriage. But the journey that followed, it taught me so much about myself, about what it means to truly love and respect not just others, but also myself. I can't regret the lessons, as hard as they were to learn." Alex nodded, a look of understanding dawning on his face. "It's rare, for someone to come out of something like this better on the other side. You should be proud." "I am," I said, the realization hitting me with the force of a revelation. "I am proud. Not of what I did, but of what I've become since. And I'm grateful, too. Grateful for the chance to make things right, in whatever small ways I can." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the park, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The conversation with Alex had been a mirror, reflecting the profound changes within me. I was still a work in progress, but for the first time in a long time, I was hopeful about the future. My journey of redemption had begun with a single painful step, but it had led me to a place of deeper understanding and compassion. The reflection I saw now, both in the mirror and in the eyes of those who knew me, was of a man who had faced his darkest moments and emerged stronger, kinder, and more authentic. As Alex and I parted ways, with promises to catch up again soon, I realized that this chapter of my life, though marked by loss and regret, would also be remembered as the beginning of something beautiful. A second chance not just at love, but at life itself.